A 3-foot putt has a different torque wave signal than a 60-foot putt with the same putter, unless it's a lap putter. Getting that rotation speed to match the player has just been such a fun thing to do, and see tens of thousands of people just rave about it. We're very proud of the work that we did in getting this out to the market and the people that have yips. My personal opinion, yips are caused by torque. That's just the way it is. If you hold an answer too lightly and you swing it for a 3-foot putt, putter won't stay square. Then they miss the putt. And then the next time they try to overcorrect. And then you get the yips. I've never heard somebody say, I have the yips on distance. Distance is not the yips. Direction is the yips. But then if you lose direction, what's distance? Distance is really a component of everything, and distance and direction work hand in hand. So if you lose one, you lose the other.
Golf Smarter, number 764. The inventor of lie-angle balanced putters, Bill Pressy, explains why his patent is so important to you.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome to the Golf Smarter podcast, Bill.
Hey, Fred, thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. This is going to be exciting because we just, last week, we gave away a directed force putter from Lab Golf. And I am, it's nice to talk to the CEO and it's nice to talk to marketing guys, but I like to talk to the technical guys, right? I want to know, let's talk about what's behind it. And I'm really excited to have you on as the inventor of that and other things. But I do want to say that you and I have something strange in common.
What's that?
And that we both have a last name that looks like something, but there's an E at the end of it. So when I go to Mexico, I'm Fred Greeny, right? But
right.
You're always Bill Pressy.
That's right.
It looks like press, it looks like green, but you get to keep the E and let everybody know. So I thought that was great. So let's start with the directed force putters if we can. I know that you're working on a new company and we'll get to that later, but let's talk about the directed force putter and how you got there. You want to just start from that?
Sure, yeah. It was about 7 years ago now. I was playing in the Monday qualifier at Hidden Valley Country Club and hit a lot of greens and didn't make any putts. And I came home, and at the time, arm locking and anchoring was conforming. And so I had an arm lock. It was called the Tricep Putter, where I took a face balance putter and then extended the shaft outside my left arm. And back in the day, Cobra made an old Tricep Putter with some forward shaft lean, which is probably the first modern kind of arm lock. And you could screw the end of the grip off and use it in conventional length. So anyways, I got home and I cut my grip off, and it was, my shirt was slippery and it's summertime and my hands were a little greasy from eating dinner. And I went to try to make putts and my face balance putter kept spinning open 90 degrees. And the lighter I held it, the more it didn't stay square. So I really had to squeeze it. And at a certain point, you just couldn't hold the club face square. And that's when I realized that the face balance putters really, the physics were not set up to actually stay square back, square through, or square to the arc at least. And just kind of dawned on me. And so then I grabbed some of my mallet prototype or some mallet putters and started making prototypes and drilling holes in them until the face kind of sat square. And then then I made the revealer. The first revealer was a stick and a hook and a string. And it was something that I wanted to be able to suspend a putter without influencing it and show people that I'm not keeping this square. This is just free to spin. And then the stick evolved into a crutch, and modified a crutch. This is all stuff that I either had in the garage or would find it a thrift store or something. And then one day I was at the thrift store and I'm looking for, ideas, and I saw a crutch, and so I modified a crutch, and that's when the two handle, the modern revealer, which is a post on the right and the left. The original one was a crutch, and I got a lot of flack on social media saying, "Hey, there's this crazy guy out there with this broken crutch showing how his putter stays square." So yeah, the video is still drifting around out there. I look back at it and it's pretty funny. But the revealer allowed me to fine tune the balance and figure out how to make a putter rotate just right so that it would stay square at address. And then as soon as you put it into motion, it would also stay square to the path that you're swinging the putter on. And with this device, I was able to, speed up or slow down just like a regular player would hold the putter out on the golf course, and swing it faster, swing it on different lie angles, flatter swing planes, more upright swing planes. And that's where I would take lead tape and put it around the outside of the original prototype to see what the lead tape does. And I kind of figured out that's where what I'm doing is moving the center of gravity relative to the shaft, because I'm not moving the shaft. So I have to move the CG of the head with lead tape. And that's kind of when all the light bulbs went off. And so I was able to create the idea and just make it with my hands first, and then reverse engineer it and get deep into the physics and the math. What's making this happen and what's going on here? And then we figured out the math and then patented the math, not the design. So it's a physics, it's a formula for center of gravity relative to the shaft. And I in your last podcast I heard what directed force means. So the word directed force, as Sam said, is a physics term, and we named the company because between the center of gravity of the head and the z-axis of the shaft, the tip of the shaft, there's a distance there, and that is actually a small lever arm. And so when we move the shaft with our hands, it applies directed force to the center of gravity via that little lever arm and makes it rotate with certain properties. So that's how we actually came up with directed force as the name of the company.
Okay. But it's not just the name of the company. Now, I need to go back for a second because you talked about arm lock. I'm not sure what you're talking about there.
Yeah. So if you look at some of the guys out there today, Bryson and Kuchar and several others, they have the shaft running up their left forearm, and it stops right below their elbow.
Right.
And so you have to have some forward lean on that. And then imagine that shaft continuing straight up and outside their left shoulder. And that's where the shaft was braced. So you couldn't you literally couldn't disconnect with, using your wrists in the putting stroke. It was a big rotary motion. And so, you had the guys that were anchoring in their chest. And then you had guys that were locking it outside their arm. Not a lot, but most guys were anchoring in the chest, and they were winning. And that seemed like an unfair advantage. So the USGA kind of jumped in.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that the year that they made the longer putters illegal because a couple of guys won on the tour, and they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, now we can't do that."
It all followed. Yeah, so we had originally I invented a grip. It was flat and long, and it was flat. It looked like a paddle with a shaft running through it. And so that would sit flat on the outside of your left arm and keep the putter face square. So the skin on the outside of your left shoulder, the grip was flat on that. And so you really couldn't twist the putter face either. But shortly after we first started, that's how the company started, was making a grip. And then they banned it, and then I had to figure out how to balance a head to counter that. So
When they
yeah,
made it illegal, what was your reaction when they made it illegal? It's like you'd obviously been working on something to make this work, and then they go, "Yeah, we're not going to do that anymore."
well, it's funny you say that because we had the grip and we did 3D printers of it, and then I used this material over it, and I actually started figuring out the balance before the rule was an issue. And so, at the time when they did the banning, we were already on to patenting it.
Oh wow!
And luckily, it fell right into our pockets, essentially. It fell into our lap, I should say, because the ban rule came into effect, and I had already figured out how to balance a putter to stay square by itself. So we got fortunate in a certain way that they did ban anchoring.
Do you consider yourself an inventor? Do you say, when people say, "What do you say I'm an inventor"?
Depends on the crowd. No, I typically say, I'm a golf professional, which I am, and went through the Golf Academy, San Diego Golf Academy back in the 90s, Arizona campus. But we were the first class in and out of the Arizona campus. And I was teaching golf, mainly club repair, master club repairman. So I spent the majority of my career playing a little bit and teaching a lot and doing a lot of club repair.
All right. Well, we're talking to Bill Pressy, and we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we're going to find out more of how you got from being an equipment geek, from being a teacher to being an equipment geek. And we'll be right back after this. So I'm not sure if you care or are following this year's World Series between the two best teams in this COVID-shortened baseball season, but I have to say, Game 4 of the World Series was one of the greatest World Series games I've ever seen. And I watched the entire game with the sound off. And beyond being a well-played and exciting game, the Rays winning after the Dodgers committed 2 errors on the final play was just off the charts crazy. The irony is that the last time a World Series game ended in an error was 34 years ago to the day, when a simple ground ball slipped through the legs of Red Sox first baseman Bill Buckner, and Ray Knight of the New York Mets scored from second base, skipping home in utter amazement. This week on our final Radio Baseball Cards episode of 2020, we hear from the 1986 World Series MVP Ray Knight, who during spring training of 1987, when we recorded this interview, was now playing for the Baltimore Orioles because he couldn't come to contract terms with the Mets ownership. Here's your host, the late Dodger Hall of Famer, Don Drysdale.
Here's another Radio Baseball Card. Ray Knight's childhood hero was Eddie Matthews, so when he started to play Little League, Ray's father made sure that he wore number 41 and played third base. His team had a great season, and Ray performed like a champion.
We're in the Little League Championships, and we're playing against the local teams.
Radio Baseball Cards with Don Drysdale is free and available wherever you subscribe to your favorite podcasts. So you grew up playing golfer, enjoyed it, became golf professional. When was equipment, it became important to you, or became something that was more than just holding the gear, picking out gear and holding it?
Well, when I was a kid, I was probably 12, 13. My grandpa did club repair in our basement. And
wow.
I think I'm 51 now, so that was in the 30s, 38 years, 35 years ago plus. And so, yeah, I really got into golf because I like playing, but I got into the club repair end of it first and refinishing wood heads and pouring inserts. And before we had metal, I was working in a club repair shop and fitting, selling clubs. So that was equipment was always kind of my roots.
Yeah. Grandpa taught you. That's awesome. All right. So now I'm curious because, directed force, lie angle balanced versus face balance, toe balance, heel balance. Why did those become the standard? Why did face balance or toe balance become a standard in design of golf when you've kind of proven that's like, that's not such a great idea?
I wish I knew the exact right answer to that. I think one of the things that happened is the Ram Zebra putter came out, and Ray Floyd and a couple other guys used the Zebra, and on the Zebra, I can't remember who designed it, maybe Clay Long or somebody, and they used a marketing term called face balanced, and the putter was face to the sky. And it became very popular, and it's winning majors, and so face balance came out, and then prior to face balance, toe hang or toe flow was not. We didn't even hear that term, and so I think at that point, then, and I may be wrong, but Scotty Cameron was not in existence. If he was probably working for Tad Moore, or Bettinardi. They all worked for Tad and learned their machining from Tad Moore. But Karsten, he hadn't really made a face balance putter. It was not his deal. He had the answer going, and so I think
Karsten being Carsten Solheim
Ping.
of Ping.
Yeah, right. Karsten Solheim Sr. And I think what happened, this is just my guess, is that they needed to come up with something to counter face balancing and explain what why the answer was so good. So they came up with toe hang and toe flow. And as listen, it's a gating stroke, it's an arcing stroke, it's not straight back, straight through. So this war between face balance and toe hang started to arise. And I think that's really where it came from. I don't know of anybody that knows the exact right answer, but from the history that I know, reading between the lines and putting two and two together, that's the best that I can surmise how these marketing terms came about.
Well, but I'm so fascinated that is a standard, and then all of a sudden, like, the apple fell on your head and you're like, whoa, gravity, what's that? Right. It just in the sense of holding your putter, lying it flat on a tabletop shouldn't be the standard for how we measure what the balances of the putter. It should be when you're standing up against the ball. Yeah,
I think it's because nobody ever invented the revealer. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been going down this rabbit hole in the first place. It would have been impossible. Now, there was an old a putter, the very first putter, and this is when I first started selling clubs and club fitting back in, this is probably 1987, 86 or somewhere in there. It's called the Positive Putter, and it had a toe up balance. But it never felt really stable. In fact, people had a hard time putting with it. But there was, many years ago, or, fast forward to 2012, 13, I thought back one night and I said, I remember this old putter we used to have in the shop. It used to be toe up. And maybe there is something to it. So it all kind of came together all in one big ball, and it was a blur. But between the concept of toe up and then inventing the revealer and then using lead tape on a mallet, that's how I kind of figured out lying balancing. But that was the first toe up putter that I can recall in my career was the Positive Putter. Now I have one and I put it in the revealer and it doesn't stay square. It stays square when it's not in motion. And all these putters, any toe up putter will stay square until you move it, unless it's a directed force putter. And so that's where I was able to kind of figure out, okay, well, this amount of shaft lean and the MOI is this much, then we need to make this rotation speed to make it stay square. And Yeah, so that's kind of the backdrop on the, the old, well, why do we put them on a table? I don't know. I really don't know. I think it was because it was convenient and every pro shop had a counter, and they said, well, this is an easy way to describe to people the difference between this mallet and this answer, or this bullseye. I mean, you had bullseyes, which were straight toe down, 8802, which were almost straight down, almost straight, the Palmer originals. And then you had the answer putters out there and the Ping Pals, um, and then you had the Ram Zebras and the Ray Cook M1X, and that was the face balance category. And then Carson shortly, followed up with face balance answers, and he changed the necks on them to make them face balanced. The chassis kind of remained this. The physics still remained the same as far as the heel toe weighting, but by changing the hosel and the relativity of the shaft, he could make face balanced putters because there was no patent on it. There was no. I don't know how anybody could describe. Well, I think somebody may have tried to patent it. I remember talking to the patent examiner trying to get my patent for lying balancing, and he brought up some prior art saying, hey, here's a patent here that says face balanced, and it's for square back, square through, and it seems like that's what you're trying to describe. So I literally had to get on a video conference with the patent office with the revealer and show them a face balance putter and a lying balance putter. And with that visual meeting with the patent office, they immediately issued the patent saying, okay, what you have is real, it's tangible, it's marketable, it works, and your math is right. So that's how that all kind of transpired. And so ever after that, the revealer was one of the craziest, I guess, inventions to I don't know, throw shadows on face balance and toe hang, and all the, I don't know, probably $1 billion worth of marketing has gone into toe hang, toe flow, and face balancing. And it's hard to overcome that unless you can physically show people differently. And they can't, they can touch it, they can feel it, they can see it. Well, it's real, it's real. So that was I don't know how they got to answer your real question. I don't know how they got to that point. I wish I did.
All right, we're going to do some research. We'll take another time out. We'll be right back. When I watch the PGA Tour these days, it seems like so many of the guys on tour are playing with mallets, where that was not always the case. It seems like the blades were the way to go for such a long time. But then all of a sudden the conversation, as you're saying, the conversation was, well, wait a minute, this is, when you lay it on a table, right? This is face balance versus toe balanced. Do you remember what the if there was controversy between the two at the time, when they're like, wait, why are you doing that to a putter? It should be doing that, and it seemed to have more and more adoption of mallet putters. Do you remember how that went?
Yeah, I think, it comes down to make a mallet. Obviously the metal has to be lighter because it's more mass. Sure. So if you make a mallet out of stainless steel, it weighs 600 grams or something. And your typical blade putters floats around, 300 to 350, depending on your preference and swing weight and whatnot. But the mallets, what's fascinating about a mallet, and we see it out there today, is that you can get a mallet. It's usually aluminum. Was a pretty common substrate for making mallets. However, you can take a mallet that has, let's say, 40-degree of toe hang, like a Spider, or there's several others out there. And then you can find a blade that also has 30-degree of toe hang. And so when you get into, well, there's obviously differences between the two. You have a blade that's a toe hang, 30 degree or 40 degree. Let's just say whatever it is, they're equal. But they're but they work better for different players. Or what you'll find out there now, and this is the stuff I'm working on, is that typically a mallet that has an equal amount of toe hang to a blade typically has a bigger grip on it. And the blades typically have smaller grips on them. And that's because even though they have the same toe hang, they have completely different torque properties to them. And so if you have more torque and you don't want your hands to feel that torque, then you need to basically use a larger grip. And that's, it's like the gears on your bicycle. So if you take your big gears, it's easier to pedal, right? It's still, you still weigh the same and the bike still weighs the same, but our body feels different things because we've changed the gears. And that's a bigger grip is a bigger gear, so it can feel the same with more torque as a blade would with a smaller grip. And that's really kind of, when you go in the pro shop, you see it right away. People want, there's advertising out that says we have a high MOI. Well, what that really means in their math, because you can measure MOI from different spots on the head. There's 3 different ways to measure the emanating torque or MOI of a putter head. And so really what it means is it's a higher torque putter. There's more twist, and I have a torque meter. It's definitely proven. It's definitely real. And so that's how we kind of look at the mallet saying, okay, well, they're higher torque, and I think a lot of players like the larger grips as well. And so when they come together in the right fashion, it works for somebody, at least for a little while. And you go out and watch the tour players, and some of them play the same putter all the time, but a lot of them will switch putters every few weeks, whether it's because they're getting paid to, or they want to, or it feels better, or they had a good practice session with it and they're just going to throw it in the bag, see what happens. But that's how the mallets relate to blades with the same toe hang. To circle back, you don't see blades with typically giant grips on them. They usually have the smaller grips. And that's a clear sign that there's a difference. Even though they have the same toe hang, they have different torque properties. And so when people pick them up off the putter rack in the pro shop, you put a bigger grip on a mallet that has a higher torque, it works better because the grip is bigger and it's just a gear reducer.
When you talk about the bigger grips, are you talking about the length of the grip, or are you talking about the
diameter,
bulk of the super stroke? The fat ones, fat grips.
Yeah, the diameter of the grip. It's really just the same as a gear on a bicycle. Imagine you got a big mallet, that's like pedaling uphill. So you want to go to the bigger gear on your bike. That's the same thing. But if you want to go fast, you got to go to the smaller grips and pedal harder. So that means you got to apply more pressure to your hands to keep it square with a smaller grip.
And so was there much controversy when the mallets started becoming more and more popular in the industry, as far as maybe that's not a great idea, or why are you doing that? Did you recognize that?
Yeah, I mean, a mallet can be made with longer aiming lines, and the weights. It's a bigger platform, so there's only so many ways to make an answer look like an answer. With mallets, you can get a lot more creative with the head shapes, as well as marketing. You see a lot of different. You have a lot more platforms, a lot more flexibility with mallets than you do with blades, and so I think the more torque, the more we're squeezing it, so it feels like it's got a bigger sweet spot, right? And the resistance to twisting is kind of a misnomer. It's really how much distance you lose because the ball doesn't track off. The ball's off the putter face before it can turn anyways. It's just a matter of how much pace you're going to lose and energy transfer from the club face to the ball. So mallets tend to have deeper center of gravity, and at that moment, at impact, the higher the MOI, the less distance you'll lose on off center hits.
Mm-hmm. And how has the industry reacted to the directed force and to the revealer? What kind of feedback, or let's just keep it at feedback. What kind of reaction have you had from the industry as far as introducing something that seems to be radically different?
Well, we started in Reno and essentially Northern California, the Sierra Nevada chapter, and Northern California PGA, and then that spread down into the Los Angeles area. But on a large scale, there was a lot of pushback. There was a serious amount of pushback
Really?
in different blog sites, or I'm not going to name them or anything, but there was a lot of people didn't like, or they would say, well, I put my hands on it. And then we would say, well, why are you getting fitted for a putter? Well, you're putting better with different putters because they have different torque profiles. And if you just put your hands on the putter, well, why aren't you putting with a bullseye instead of that big zebra? Well, because there's technology there. And so, it becomes hard to overcome opinions on social medias or out there until you have the revealer. Once you have the revealer, there's still a small percentage of people go, oh, well, I just hold it with my hands. Well, okay. And so, you have to be careful of how hard you come on to saying, hey, listen, your putter doesn't do what it says. But this one does. And you just, spent $300 on something that maybe doesn't do what you thought it did. So that was definitely walking on pins and needles for a while. And so, with the more shows I did, Golf WRX, we got the, gold chip award for that. That was awesome. Back in the day. And then doing the first PGA show was really where things kind of took off. And then we expanded into some of the Midwest, Wisconsin and the New York, the Met section, and then just kind of trickled down from there. So.
Wow. Well, congratulations. It's, that's pretty fascinating. And I hope that, we all get to see the growth of this type, and maybe, I guess what will validate it would be competition.
Yeah, that's Sam and I had spent the last few years really plugging away out on tour, and we had a really good opportunity to get a lot of exposures at the Masters last year, and Mr. Scott gave us some great airtime and played it all 4 days, which was great. At one point was leading, and so we did good from that, but it's very competitive out on the PGA Tour, and we try to focus on some attention on it, because everybody knows if you get a PGA Tour win or you have a lot of exposure on TV, it's beneficial. And the first thing a lot of people ask is, well, what tour players use it? And then
exactly.
So we typically we have several putters in play on the different tours every week worldwide until we keep gaining traction, and it shows in the Darrell surveys. And so even though we don't get a lot of TV exposure, the Darrell survey checks everybody's bag at every tournament every day. And we actually qualified for a third or fourth tour badge this year. Sam had one, I had one. And so we keep getting more and more, which means it's all based on the Darrell survey, not who you see it on TV using. And so we keep qualifying for more tour credentials. So it's good.
So this is all new to me. I've never heard about this survey, and you get a bag. Did I understand that correctly? That if you get enough people, you get a badge or a
Yeah,
badge?
yeah.
A badge.
Every week you have to have, X amount, or on average, through the PGA, Korn Ferry, LPGA, um, and then of course we have the Asian tours, the European tour, Australian tours. But in the PGA Tour, we've been lucky enough to keep having players, play them. And we don't get a lot of airtime, but we keep qualifying for more credentials, so that works. That's just a telltale sign, that they're out there, and guys are still using them and continue to grow. So that's
Yeah.
how that all works. If you just start a putter company, you can't go out on the PGA Tour green and say, "Hey guys, try this." It doesn't work like that. So you have to, have players that use them, and it's hard to get those because they usually want to get paid first. And
Sure.
we've never paid a tour pro to use our putter in any event at any time. And so that was really a good testimonial to, let's try some new technology. This putter stays square. And ultimately, a lot of times a player will do good, and then a big company will jump in and give them a sponsorship, and out we go. And it happens, and it's okay. It's part of the competitiveness of the free market, and that's one of the great things about America is that you can compete, and you can make your claims, and you can back up your claims. So we definitely relish the competition, and we continue to make headway. And the new putter, the new directed force 2.1 T2, looks like it's the same profile as the old putter, but now we have nickel plating on it and a slightly different way of attaching the shaft to the head. And it's just fantastic. I've had mine for a few months now, and a demo, and I let my friends use it, and it's amazing. So anybody out there that is interested in the directed force putter, as the inventor, creator, I'm telling you that the new putter, you got it right there. Yeah, it is unbelievable for feel, click, roll, performance. So, yeah.
I was playing with somebody recently. Goes, so where'd you get that Starship Enterprise putter? It's like,
that's right.
It's kind of like what it looks like.
Yeah. And there's some videos I have out on YouTube, Fred. If you that bean-shaped hole in the back has purpose to it, and you can plop 2 golf balls in the back and use it as a tempo trainer. But just Google directed force 1-ball drill and directed force 2-ball drill on YouTube, and you'll see the purpose for those that branding iron shape bottle opener.
Yeah, exactly. I will definitely put on our blog post the video you just mentioned, because people ask me, "Oh, so that little indentation in the back, that's to pick up the ball, right?" It's like, no, you can't pick up the ball with this thing. It looks like you're supposed to scoop up the ball, but no, you got to look.
You can, but I put a video up on that too. You can also put a hole in the wall. So.
All right, let's take another time out, and I want to come back and talk more about getting this in people's hands, and we'll be back after that. Bill, how did you guys get Adam Scott to even notice the putter?
Well, that's a good story. That's actually really kind of a interesting, because there's the GOAT, Kelly Slater of surfers, the greatest of all time surfer. Kelly Slater picked up our putter at Carlsbad Golf Center in SoCal. Just went in one day, and then he got it. Just paid for it as a regular guy, and then he started playing it, and then he put an Instagram post up or something like that, and it gave us a big shout out. Well, he's really good friends with Adam Scott, and they play a lot. And he kept putting really good while he's playing with Adam Scott. And so ultimately, then Adam says, "Hey, all right, let me try one." And I was working the Honda Classic in Florida a few years ago, and Mr. Scott was playing in that tournament and had reached out. So I met him on kind of the unused practice putting green in privacy, and him and his caddy John, and we spent a couple hours together, and I fit him, and I brought some putters over, and I was shocked he put it in play the next day. So from then on, but yeah, it was Kelly Slater, the surf buddies of all things.
Funny.
That's how it got to Adam.
Well, okay, so then he played it for how long before the Masters happened, and he was carrying it on Masters and giving you guys lots of.
Yeah, it was the Honda. It was the Honda, and then to the Masters.
So it was just a couple of weeks. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then how long did he keep it after that? Is he still using it, and why?
Yeah. I'm not sure. You know, his stats at the Masters were pretty darn good actually for putting. He was lagging some great putts up there. He just missed a couple short ones, and I talked to him after the Masters, and I think one of the things that happened was, believe it or not, Tiger was putting on the hole behind the green, or that Adam was putting, and he sunk a putt, and the crowd erupted, and it was literally right in his backswing, and he missed a 3.5 foot putt. That's the way I understand it, and that kind of got in his head, and was one of the reasons why he went to the long putter, but he really putted well with our putter, and we were disappointed, obviously, but understood that a player of his caliber has to use whatever not only works physically, but also, and sometimes more importantly, mentally, provides the confidence to get you over missed putts and not feel that something's going south quickly at that level. You're quite a big paycheck on the line for 3-foot putts sometimes. So that's really, I don't know how, honestly, I don't remember how many events afterwards. But now he's I think we have a couple broomstick prototypes that we've sent out with our new head that's on the website for broomstick, where we got the gram weight up, and so we'll see what happens. I don't know. There's some new products coming out, the new press grips, and the DF arm lock and broomstick putter is now the appropriate weight, which usually needs to be 450 grams, 500 grams for some of the longer putters, and that weight and that length shaft really helps steady out some of the better players that get twitchy with the short putters, and that's why they use broomstick. I mean, there's still probably at least a dozen guys out there that use broomstick between the Champions Tour and the PGA Tour. I don't see anybody on the LPGA, but I think there's one guy on Korn Ferry I saw the other day, but that's about it.
Broomstick meaning
chest putter, belly, work up by your sternum. Yeah.
Right. Let's get into torque and why that's important and why the average golfer should care.
Well, let's ease into it like this. A lot of the drivers you have right now, pretty much all of them, you can adjust the weights, from the front to the back or the heel to the toe, and then you go hit it, and it makes the ball do different things. If you move the putter, or if you move the torque out to the toe of a driver, what does it do? It goes right. And if you move it to the heel, it tends to draw easier or hook easier. Well, that's torque, and I mean, they do it in drivers. So it's the easiest way to, the more weight you put out towards the toe of a putter, or away from the shaft, the more torque it's creating, and the toe does not want to come around. And we see the physical proof in drivers. Anybody that has a driver in their bag right now that's less than 3 years old, 99% of them, well, whatever that is, it's a large number, have adjustable weights. So that's where we see torque outside directed force putters, Lab Golf Company, and they're using it. And when you get irons, if you have a high handicap, they give you a big long offset, and the blade's longer from heel to toe, and there's more offset. Well, that's a higher torque iron, which I'm getting into now is that may not be the best way. If somebody slices their irons, and you give them a longer blade with more torque, it's kind of counteractive to the physics involved. So with torque on putters, the tempo, I don't know. It's hard to explain because the hands feel different things and it reacts. So if you put a club out and hold it with both your hands, and a friend and your friend says, okay, keep the putter straight up and down, I'm going to twist the head. As soon as you feel that head twist, your brain feels that torque, and then it sends a signal to your muscles to counter that, or squeeze or brace, to try to, the goal is to keep the toe of the club up. And when you have a friend twisting on it, clockwise or counterclockwise, as soon as you sense that torque, your brain responds. I mean, it's less than half a second. Like, boom, it's back there. And so when we putt, we feel torque in putters, whether we know it or not, except for our putter. And then we respond. So I think maybe, where they get toe flow is the putter was actually torquing in a clockwise direction, and instantly our hands respond and counter, and it's our hands that are creating the toe flow in response to the torque the putter applied to our hands in the first place. And so that's where, face balance putters, they only rotate one way, and that's clockwise. They never come back. And toe hang putters, if you take them back too fast, they actually flip over counterclockwise, and then when you change directions, everything's going clockwise when you go from the backswing to the forward swing. With lie angle balancing, we just want to get rid of all that, because if you have a different length putt, a 3-foot putt has a different torque wave signal than a 60-foot putt with the same putter, unless it's a lab putter. And that's where, with the putter that you have now and the 2.1T, T2, getting that rotation speed to match the player has just been such a fun thing to do, and see thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people just rave about it. We're very proud of the work that we did in getting this out to the market, and the people that have yips. My personal opinion, yips are caused by torque. It's that's just the way it is. If you hold an answer too lightly and you swing it for a 3-foot putt, the putter won't stay square, and so then they miss the putt, and then the next time they try to overcorrect, and then you get the yips. And it's not anything more than, I've never heard of somebody say, I have the yips on distance. Distance is not the yips. Direction is the yips, and so. But then if you lose direction, what's distance? The distance is really a component of everything, and distance and direction work hand in hand. So if you lose one, you lose the other.
So interesting. So where's the competition? How come other companies, especially big ones with the massive marketing budgets, forget the R&D, the massive marketing budgets, when are they going to start coming out with the lie angle balance putters?
Well, we have a patent on it. I have a utility. Well, it's owned by Lab Golf, but I originally patented it with my partner Scott, and that's 17 years. So there's at least 12, 13 years left where companies cannot make a putter that's self-balancing. So if you just Google my name and in a patent search, you'll see self-balancing putter, and that's the patent. And it's the physics, it's not the shape. We can balance any shape. It's just if the intent of a putter company is to balance a putter so it stays square by itself with forward shaft lean, then that's probably infringing. So that's why we haven't seen too many of them out there, as they kind of got onto it. And we had a couple people that we had to talk to back in the day, a long time ago.
Like a cease and desist talk to?
Well, not officially. It didn't get to that stage, but they didn't know about us. So we just politely, would say, hey, listen, if you're trying to make a putter balance with forward shaft lean, then, we have this patent issued. So we'd appreciate it. And just very small people that were just, kind of messing around, I guess, boutiques, stuff like that. So,
but there's so many small putter companies out there. Is there anybody doing something similar or
no? We're well known enough now, and I think there's enough of a following and brand awareness. Sam and the team at Lab now have done a great job with rebranding the company and digital marketing and social media marketing. The PGA shows that we do, we're a big booth there. So honestly, the club industry and the equipment industry is out there, but the gatekeepers of the industry are generally the PGA professionals, the PGA of America. And so, if you don't have something that they like, you won't get in the pro shops. It won't go out there. So it was really important when I started the company is to try to align and educate the PGA of America, all the club professionals. And without them, you can't make it in the industry. It really becomes difficult, especially with new technology. If you're going to go make, a bullseye, there's no patent on the bullseye. You can make as many as you want, but then, why? And there's not a big market. And so that's where I think that, the getting it out there, and we don't have anybody intentionally trying to replicate lie angle balancing. Even the Access 1 putter, which has changed. The original Access 1 sat 20 degrees open. And so I'm just not sure. Mine doesn't stay square. I have an Access 1. It's close, but it's not dead on. And so, there's in the patent laws, you got to be 10, 20, 30% different than the patent says, to actually be not infringing. And so it's a cat and mouse game, just like, a lot of the slots and drivers when they came out, who was it and was it on the top or the bottom? So in the golf industry, we just we're all playing in the same sandbox. So we have to
play
just
nice.
At least talk to each other and figure out if it's an honest mistake, or if they want to use the technology, then sure, we can license, we could buy it, whatever. But there's no reason to go kick Goliath in the shins,
Well, it's absolutely fascinating journey that you've been on here, and I want to continue and see where your journey's taking you, and we're going to do that right after this. If you're a fan of Golf Smarter and also enjoy hearing past episodes to learn more from our guests, then don't miss Golf Smarter Mulligans, your second chance to gain insights from the best instructors featured on Golf Smarter. This week is called Custom Club Fitting, The Final Frontier, with custom club fitter Dan Sachs.
You buy off the rack because that's the way it's done. Why would you want to have custom golf clubs? Now that's becoming the way it's being done. The biggest difference is that everybody is unique. They come in all different shapes and sizes. They come with all different types of swing dynamics. What's so important is not just the custom fitting with regard to loft, lie, length, weight, shaft flex, but making sure that people are playing golf clubs that are not only appropriate for their abilities, but also commensurate with their goals for the game. Let's just say you're a 15 handicap in the most generic sense of the 15 handicap. If your goal is to be a 10, you shouldn't be out there with a set of Hague Ultradyne blades from 1965. It's a little bit tougher to hit than the new, more forgiving game improvement type golf club.
That's episode 80 of Golf Smarter Mulligans, featuring custom club fitter and maker Dan Sachs, being released this Friday. Next week will be part 2, where Dan answers listener questions about clubs, shafts, grips, fitting, and more. Both Golf Smarter and Golf Smarter Mulligans are free and available wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please subscribe, and when you do, you'll be notified immediately when a brand new episode of either has downloaded to your favorite podcast app. God, we haven't even talked about the grips, but I want to talk, as we wrap this up, I want to talk about what's next for Bill Pressy. Well, I can't believe that you're just, okay, I have this patent, I'm done, I'm going to go play golf now. You got to be creating something new, right?
Yeah, I've filed another patent, and it's for Faceit, FACIT.com, FaceitGolf.com, actually. And
I love the name.
A lot of people that the USGA basically said, hey, listen, at some point you can't use all these dots and you can't have angled grooves on the club. And then in the old days, a club face, the club faces were bigger with skinnier soles, and the grips were longer, and they didn't even carry 14 clubs. But they could shoot some really good scores. And a golfer at that point could actually see club face plane, and the plane is the flat surface that the grooves are across, and that's comprised of loft, face angle, and lie angle, and it creates this plane. It's a three-dimensional. It's three things that go to create what we call club face. However, in today's with the USGA rules, you have to have the scoring lines have to be all be parallel. You can't have, angled lines and whatnot. So at some point, the large majority of the golfers in the world lost the ability to see club face plane. So it's like here's a prime example. When you're in a bunker and you see a lot of articles say, okay, we want you to dig your feet in a little bit. Well, that's flattening the lie angle. And then we want you to open the club face a little bit. And we want you to aim left of the hole, with your body, and swing left, and then the ball comes out right. That's a lot to process.
Yeah.
In reality, what the tour pros, and this is why tour pros aim for bunkers, is they open the club face, they drop the shaft, and they swing where they want the ball to go. They don't swing left of that. And so if you ever listen to Gary Player give a bunker lesson, he never says aim left with your body, because he knows, and same with Lee Trevino back in the day, they had made a Spalding Dynamiter angled groove wedge that Trevino played in a lot of tournaments, and I think he won a few majors with it. But that was the way, in the modern teachings and ball flight laws, people are just talking about face angle and club path and angle of attack. It's face angle is a third of the component of club face plane, and really what it is it's angle of attack, club face plane, and path. Face angle is an incomplete. That's like buying a car with no tires on it or no seats in it. It's club face angle is a component of face plane, and if you can't have lie angle and loft and face angle, then you're just kind of shooting in the dark, and it affects ball flight laws. I can take a club face and open the club face so the grooves appear open and hook it by using lie angle, and that's where the guys on tour inherently, they understand this and they get really good at it. and they aim for bunkers. Mickelson is a master of face playing. You see, how does he hit the ball straight? And you see on TV, and the club face was wide open. Well, how do you hit that straight? The grooves are aimed out to the right. Well, he's using lie angle. That's what it is. And so face it is all about, it's a very simple equation. So the difference between, let's just take your 7 and your 8 iron, is a ½ inch in length, right? All your clubs, typically, unless you're Cobra 1 length, the difference between clubs is a ½ inch in length, and then on the irons, it's 4 degrees of loft. It's typically there, once or twice during the set, you may have a 3-degree gap or 6-degree gap in your wedges, but here nor there. So if there's 4 degrees of loft, difference between clubs, and a ½ inch in length, then if you don't change the length of the golf club, you need to know where 8 degrees is. So if I want to hit my 7 iron the same distance as my 8 iron, at that same length, my 7 iron length, I need to open the club face 8 degrees. And then I have to drop the shaft 8 degrees. It's the same as having a magnetic stick on the club face. If you open it, the stick aims out to the right. And then all you have to do is drop your hands down a little bit, and then the stick is back aiming straight. And so that's how the other part about really good players is if there's a right pin location, the ball's above their feet, then they have to know how to hit a shot that's not going to hook. I mean, a lot of times when the ball's above your feet, you're on the right side of the fairway, and there's usually a tree or a bunch of different things that can happen. Yes, you can play shots and know that it's going to swing left, but all I'm doing is creating another tool in the toolbox for players to be able to understand how to use the tool properly. And this is a pattern that we put on the face. There's a stainless steel stencil. I laser them on, and you send the clubs to me. I laser them on and send them back to you. It's USGA conforming. The stencil falls under the USGA rules, the same as a golf ball. So you have a stencil that you put on your golf ball, and you mark your lines on it. And then, between holes from one green to the next tee box, you can remark your golf ball. Well, it's the same with the face it DSL. And DSL stands for dynamic scoring lines. And those are going to be available on the website shortly. It's just a great way to help people understand how to play the game, get around the golf course. Driving ranges are flat. A lot of times we lose it from the driving range of the golf course because now the golf course is uneven. Well, how do we deal with that? And that's what Face It's all about. So after I did the putter thing, I wanted to go into irons, and I've had this actually in this Face It idea in my back pocket for 10 plus years at least. But I didn't want to get too thinned out with putters and wedges and irons and all that. So I stuck with the putters for many, many years. And now I've stepped away from lab to do this. And I think that the people need to play better golf. And in order to do that, even with the same swing, they just need to know how to aim the club face and select the right club to get the desired results to get around the golf course.
Fascinating. When is this going to be available to the public?
I'll be opening my website store probably in the next 2 weeks. We're talking about around
November, beginning of November of 2020.
Yeah. And then the Face It Golf Facebook page. If you want a stencil before it's available on the website, just go to my Facebook page and go to faceitgolf.com. Send me a message, and they're available. I actually have them available for shipping right now, but the website, I want to make some changes to it and launch it a little bit differently than what I was going to do. So, but the stencils are available. $24.99 includes shipping. So, piece of cake. Stainless steel, made in USA.
Is it for every player? Is it for all handicappers? Or are you targeting a very specific niche?
Absolutely, all handicaps. Tour pros down to I've never picked up a golf club before.
Wow.
Just the sooner you have it and understand it and can use it, the better player you'll be.
That is quite the comment. Well, it's been absolutely fascinating. I really appreciate you giving me as much time as you have. This has been one of the longest conversations we've recorded in a long time, Bill. But it was fascinating. And your explanations, I know it's hard to do on audio, but you've done a very good job. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, Fred. It's a pleasure, and appreciate everything you do for the golf business and getting the pros out on your shows. It means a lot to a lot of people.
So has this conversation sparked your interest even more about the putters from Lab Golf? Remember, you get 15% off a Lab Golf putter for yourself. The DF 2.1, T2 that he talks about. It's right there waiting for you. Go to labgolf.com. L-A-B is in boy. L-A-B, lab, which is lie angle balanced, labgolf.com before this offer expires on April 1, 2021. Now, based on the flood of entries we've already received from all over the world, I get the sense that our next giveaway is something that has captured your imagination. And knowing that ShotScope's supply chain and availability is extremely limited right now for the V3, I highly recommend that you get your entry in as soon as this episode is done. Just click on the Enter Now banner at the top of the homepage at golfsmarter.com. That deadline to enter is Sunday, November 1st, 2020, midnight Pacific time, 3 a.m. Eastern time, and then go change your clocks. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for products or guests, just click on the Hey Fred button at golfsmarter.com.